All right, we're going to go ahead and start over here with the alfalfa presentation. I'll get a few people hurrying over. Appreciate all of you coming out here tonight. Our next presenter here is Aaron Meter. Aaron is a district manager, and I messed up again. It's Aaron and Alicia Meter because they do work together as a team. I've had the opportunity to be to their home many a time, sit in their kitchen with them, and they truly do work together as a team, so I do have to give credit to Alicia. But Aaron and Alicia are cow-calf producers in southeast Iowa. They also sell alfalfa commercially. Aaron, as he'll tell you a little bit here, first became acquainted with the AgroVantage program about 3 years ago here at this event. And he's going to tell you about some of the practices that he's incorporated into his operation at home and what it's meant to them as a family and to their farming operation. In your notebook that you've got there, Jerry, can I borrow your notebook a second? If you open up your notebook here and turn behind this blue divider, behind the ProServe promotion flyer here, you're going to have Aaron's presentation. And Aaron's going to talk about a soil test, and that is to the back of his presentation. So everything you're going to see up here on his storyboards is right here in your handy-dandy notebook. All right, thank you, Jerry. All right, so without further ado, join me in welcoming Aaron Meter, talking about Alfalfa program.
Well, good evening. Welcome to cool Nebraska. As Larry said, my wife and I raise cattle in southeast Iowa. We have roughly 100 head of cows, 50 in the spring herd, 50 in the fall herd. We work the Conklin business, and we have some construction business interests. So, as Larry said also, 3 years ago was my first attendance out here at Pro Grower, and I came and I was looking. I needed something to improve my bottom line. Being a young farmer today, you have several problems against you. High cash rent, high inputs, and greedy buggers. So it takes more money to make things fly. And it wasn't working quite as well as I'd like to have worked. So when I was out here, I was intrigued. I was over the hill here after Pro Grower with Charles, and I was walking through 9-year-old stands of alfalfa that were thicker and more healthy than my 3- and 4-year-old stands at home. And that was pretty cool. I thought, man, something's different here. So I asked Charles if he would take me around the farm and let me see the back 40, because this is up here where everybody can see it. And doggone it, the back 40 looked just like this one. So I said, Charles, I said, what are you doing? And so he told me about the system, and I found what I was missing was a system. So that's what I'm here to talk about today, is the alfalfa system, and it has done wonders for my operation. So let's start here first. Notice we have the alfalfa stand establishment. Well, how do we figure out what we need to produce a good stand? We need a prescription. If you'll open your books there, we start with a basic soil test. It gives us a prescription. It tells us what nutrients we're lacking in order to reach the goals that we want to achieve. This was the first system where I could punch in a goal that I wanted to achieve for alfalfa. If you'll notice, this piece here is my Hartnell piece that I rent. If you look here at the recommended nutrient applications, it says yield goal, 8 ton. All right, in order to have good alfalfa, the key to anything is a good foundation. A good foundation allows us faster stand establishment, greater root development, better water penetration, quicker canopy to inhibit grass and weeds. I also learned that I went to this system, I got rid of my old ways. Bye-bye went the cover crop. Oats turned into weeds, and direct seeding become a dream. Soil broadcast before seeding. 5 gallon of Feast 3 1818, 16 ounces of the soil Excito, 1 quart of Wex, 4 ounces of Amplify D. the results will be amazing. If you're not starting a stand establishment, if you're working with an old stand, this piece here was an old stand that I rented. It was a first-year seating. The man retired. I rented it. Last year was my first year out renting it. This was my second. So you'll notice I took these soil samples in May. Breaking dormancy and after cutting on established stands. We come in and we feed. We feed to stimulate early growth in the roots. Regrowth draws nutrients from the root reserves. We have to replenish them. Yield is based on shoots per plant, leaf to stem ratio. We increase that with feeding of the plant. And again, when we increase the growth, the leaf to stem ratio, and increase the canopy, we reduce our weed pressure. That's before our first cutting. After our first cutting, we go in. I like to do it right after I take the bales off. What we do, we call foliar feeding. Note that does not say foliar spraying. It says feeding. We are feeding the plant. Foliar feeding allows faster regrowth, again quicker canopy, increased leafiness, increased RFV, which leads to increased yield, which also adds to longer stand life. Now if you'll note here, it has no fertilizer here. It just says foliar excito, rain fast, and adjust the water to pH. Well, what I didn't have before was a system. I had a maintenance ration, dry broadcast maintenance ration. If you'll note the second page of your soil test, it has a recommended fertility program. It said, Aaron, if you want to produce this 8-ton yield goal that you want, which my best before was about 5.5, it says this is what you're going to have to do. So right here it tells me I need to do 3 gallons of 3-18-18 each application. I would implement that there. That's what the prescription tells me. Now note on this here, it says additional fertility requirements when all the above products are applied. Don't cheat on this. It said here I was calling for some potash and some phosphate. My soil needed it. That field was in trouble. So for the first time in my life, I never really skimped on a soil test. I did exactly what it said. What's the result of that? This year on that piece, after 2 cuttings, 5.6 ton to the acre. 3 more cuttings to go. I'm already over my best in 2 cuttings. I didn't cheat the system. I finally found the tool that I was looking for to work for me, not me to work for it. Now this preservative benefits. This process here is what sold me on Conklin products and gave me the confidence that they would keep performing. When I came out here to Charles's farm 3 years ago for the first time, and I saw the vast differences in the quality of his hay in these dryland hills in Nebraska compared to my good moisture conditions in southeast Iowa, I was impressed. I told Charles, I said, man, Charles, it's July. I said, how can I implement this system this time of year? He said, Aaron, he says, you go home. He says, and you do this. And you see how it works. So I did. I went home and this is the first thing I applied. These are my rates. I have adjusted these in the last 3 years to where I find they perform for me. When I go in and I mow the hay, I apply 20 ounces of Wex per 50 gallon of spray solution. I apply 1.3 ounce of ProServe per ton of hay. If you're familiar with the ProServe product, you might say, why is he saying 1.3 when the jug says 1 ounce per ton? I find that this works better for me. I haven't had a failure, but I might have a nervous disorder, but I like to know that I have enough on. And then I run 3 gallons of spray solution per acre on my swather. So this mix right here in 50 gallons of water will do 16 acres. What this allowed me to do was put my hay up a day earlier and 18 to 20% moisture. So it allowed me to get in there and make the weather window work for me instead of getting busted all the time. And the thing I liked about the ProServe in the windrow was I had less bleaching from the sun, and even if I caught up to a ½ inch of rain to an inch, I was still protected from mold. So I achieved quicker dry down, and I retained more leaves and put my hay up at a higher moisture. That's what sold me right there. What an excellent system. Because I found that I had this system that would grow alfalfa and produce tonnage, but what was I doing to protect my harvest end? You know, my risk at harvest. I still had to have something to protect that. This was it. Now this system, after we've taken our last cutting off, we come in and we feed it one last time. You're kind of putting the plant to sleep for the winter. You're kind of rocking it to sleep. If you'll notice, there's no micros in here, no zinc, no boron, no excito. What we're wanting that root to do is just absorb nutrients in the root, prepare it for winter. That increases the root energy, reduces the chance for winter kill. That was the system I was looking for. It's been a boon for Alicia and I. It has taken me from wondering whether I should get out or just keep doing the status quo to looking for a little more. I can make my ground that I have, I can maximize it. That high cash rent that I was paying, it's working now. The other thing that's interesting about my operation is some of my ground, the hay ground, is rented. Most of it is on the shares. Before, I just had a spring herd my first year into this. I'm still running pretty much the same hay ground. What it's done for me, this system, I've doubled my herd in the last year. I've put up enough hay on the shares to supply my doubled herd with feed and have hay to sell off just my share ground. All my rented ground will go for sale. So it's taken me from that point where it was kind of borderline profitable, you know, kind of decent, but to, hey, this is all right. So this is the system that I was looking for on my farm, and it's been very beneficial to me. So if there's any questions about my system, about this harvest benefits, why I'm doing that, what it's costing me, feel free to ask me and I'll answer what I can. So fire away.
Question for Aaron.
Yes, Jim.
Have you done side-by-side on the ProServe and Wex to see moisture variation or test results?
Question is, have I done side-by-side with the ProServe and the Wex to see variation in moisture and results? Yes, I have. I don't own a baler. I have a small square baler, but most of my round bales are custom baled. And my side-by-side comparison is I shut the switch off and I don't apply on a few rounds. And I have not yet found one custom baler that cannot tell to the windrow where I shut the machine off.
Yeah. Have you tested the bales to make a comparison that way?
As far as?
Moisture, RFV.
My RFVs are about 20 points higher with this whole program than they used to be. But I don't test them a lot. I haven't pulled a lot of data on that. So as far as the ProServe and the Wex and my RFV, this is just my third year into it. What I have pulled so far has been about 20 points difference. So I don't have a lot of data on that. Sure, fire away.
One of the things I run into on every farmer, they don't care what you're selling. Cost per acre.
Cost per acre.
Yep. They don't care what you got.
Yep.
Cost per acre. First thing out of their mouth.
Question is cost per acre. My answer is this doesn't cost me anything. It makes me money.
Well, that's a good thing.
But I will tell you, side-by-side comparisons right now, I still run those trials because I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. This right here is about 5.6 ton to the acre. My dry broadcast system, which is the 45, it cost me $45 for my maintenance ration after first cutting and in fall when I put it to sleep. So it's 90 bucks an acre. This cost per acre on this system is going to be anywhere from 80 to 120. But here's the difference. My dry broadcast system after my first 2 cuttings is running 3.8 ton. My AgroVantage system is running 5.6 ton. That's a 1.5 tons difference in the first 2 cuttings. Right now, top quality hay is going for $125 a ton. Okay, junk hay, I got a call from Gainesville, Texas yesterday, wanting anything I could send them, $90 a ton. Okay, we'll take that 1.5 tons. That's $145 difference already in the systems for a $30 more investment. So for 30 bucks, I can pick up 145. I'll do it every day of the week. That's what it's running for me right now, this year. So, other questions?
What's the guy on the baler? What is he noticing? How does he know?
He's noticing the toughness. Because see, I'm getting a day quicker drying time with this. That's what he notices. Really works him. He can tell right to the windrow where I stop.
Does he have a moisture tester on his machine?
No. He just calls me up. He says, "You shut the dope off down here in this corner?" Yeah, I did. Yeah, he can tell right to the row. So, question was, can the baler man tell? That was the question. That's what I answered. Other questions?
Aaron, if somebody's here and they're thinking about implementing something from the AgroVantage program, and you kind of answered this earlier, what is something they could go home and easily and quickly do to show that there's a value to this system?
Right here. Go home and put the, what we'll call the harvest protection plan at work for you. This right here will gained me lots of confidence in the products and the system.
Aaron, what would that cost me?
Well, this wax here is pretty expensive. You know, inputs are rising today, and 20 ounces of wax at retail per 50 gallon of solution is going to cost you 40 cents an acre. And I figure I'm getting 2.5 to 3 ton an acre, so that drying agent is going to cost me about a dime to 12 cents. So it's pretty expensive to pick up a day of drying time.
That's at retail.
That's at retail. The ProServe, retail cost of the ProServe is going to cost you $1.80 a ton. You can pick up 4 to 6 points of moisture for $1.80 a ton. If you can increase your RFV from 170 to 185, there's a $25 per ton difference right there. For $1.80 a ton, why not? Other questions?
Aaron, I might mention that all the first cutting hay that came off of my 5 locations here in Richardson County, it's already sold, it's gone, and we had some on display. RFV was 205 on first cutting. That's probably unheard of in Richardson County.
It's unheard of in Washington County, Iowa. Charles just said that the first cutting he pulled off here, all your first cutting?
All of them, 205.
Was 205 RFV. All of it. How long have you been on the system?
Protein 23.2.
Protein was 23.2. You won't have any problem selling that anywhere. Border to border, coast to coast. It's gone. Other questions?
Location of
Oh, hey. Oh.
Rex, you had a question?
location of application.
question was location of application. Right here, I'm applying this at the swather. On my, I gotta confess, I'm envious. I wish my swather looked like that one. But mine is a... I have a Heston center pivot, and it's not a disc, it's a sickle conditioner. And I mount my nozzles on my hood, so after my hay is leaving the cutter bars, it's going into the crimper rolls. I'm spraying it right there as it's going into the crimper rolls, so everything's getting application. That's where I'm mounted. Charles's is mounted differently over here, and feel free to take a look at it.
So after you spray that on, say you rake that hay again, is that going to hurt that?
The question was, after I sprayed that on, if I rake that hay again, is it going to hurt it? No, I rake all my hay after I mow it. So actually I rake while it's wet. There's water running off my tires when I rake. So no, it will not hurt it. This bacteria is a dead bacteria. That's why we use ProServe in the windrow. You cannot use the feed store in the windrow. It's a live bacteria. It'll be gone. Did that answer your question? Or? Rich?
When's the best time to put on your 318-18 or 918-9? Like at this time of the evening? And how much growth do you have back?
Question is, when's the best time to put on the 318-18? Is it this time of the evening or in the heat of the day? Or how much growth? The best time to put on the 318-18, when I like to do it, is the hours between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. But what we're looking for is a 20-degree temperature drop. So right now, if you were to go out and start foliar feeding, you could do that. Do not apply in the heat of the day. If you're out there after 8 o'clock in the morning, stop. That's my philosophy. What's yours, Charles?
I agree. We do almost all ours at night because if you got a really heavy dew in the morning, it won't take it in quite as well. So we'll start about 10 o'clock at night, depending. It depends on the time of the year, maybe 8 o'clock at night and foliar feed.
Yeah. My theory is at night, see, during the day that plant's closed up. It's protecting itself from the heat. At night, my theory is the plant's relaxed. The stomata's opening up. It'll receive that feed better. That's my theory. But do not apply it at the heat of the day. It won't receive it well at all in the heat of the day.
And about how much growth or how far after cutting do you put that on?
How much growth, how far after cutting? I like to do it right after I get the bales off the field, up to about 4 inches of growth. That's the window. Any later than then, you're not getting the full benefit of the feed, I don't feel. Other questions?
You're basically squirting on the stems if you're going in there right after the bale.
You bet. Right on the crown. The question was, I'm basically squirting right on the stems. And I said yes. So.
Eric?
Yes.
Are you putting on the inoculant on any bales when you bale?
The inoculant. I'm not set. The question is, am I putting on any of the inoculant, which would be the feed store, when I bale? No, I am not putting on at the baler. I don't have that set up right at this time. I'm just running this setup right here. And it's taken me from 18 to 20% in the round bales. I can get 22 to 23 in the small squares comfortably. But I'm running this rate. I'm not cheating here. I'm actually doing a little more than what they recommend. But this cost right here is $1.80 a ton retail. So it doesn't take much to give yourself a little extra insurance. Yes, Tom?
Are you mowing your small square bales right away? Or?
Question is, am I mowing my small square bales right away? Yes.
Any other questions for Aaron?
So if you was going to put in a new stand alfalfa, first thing you do is get a soil sample.
Question is, if I was to put in a new stand of alfalfa, first thing what I do would I be soil sample? You bet. Get a prescription. Find out what that soil's doing. I compare the soil sample to the blood test. How do we know what our body's doing? You know, what does our body need? pull a little blood and they can tell us what we're short on, what we're deficient in. Same thing's true with your ground.
Aaron, that brings up another question you used.
I might mention also that pelletized lime and gypsum, whatever that soil test calls for, on most of my alfalfa ground, we put on 500 to 600 pounds of pelletized lime before we planted, and we even came back a couple years later and put it on after we planted. It make a huge difference.
Can you say what he said?
Yeah, just a second. Repeat that into the mic. I just want to say, if you're going to plant out, and I don't, is Ron Francis here, or is he in the other group? He's in the other group, okay. I just want to say that when you do your soil test, if it calls for gypsum or pelletized lime, put it on. I mean, it may come back. I mean, we've had soils come back, call for 500-600 pounds of pelletized lime. Put it on. There's no better time to put it on than before you plant your alfalfa. And then we've even come back 2 years after we planted and put it on in the fall. And during the winter, the snow will take it right down. Of course, I airway all my alfalfa every fall. We run an airway across everything. So we get those slots in there so we get that moisture down and get that penetration down, because you're driving on an alfalfa field, you're going to have compaction. There's no way that you can't keep from it with these large balers today and large trucks and tractors loading bales. But pelletized lime and gypsum are most people's limiting factor in alfalfa production, depending on what that soil test says. Just a second. Yeah, Rich.
Do you use the seed germination rate to amplify? And what's Charles's rate for planting his alfalfa here for new alfalfa?
Question was, do I use the seed germination aid, which would be the Amplify? Yes. The other question was, repeat it for me, Rich.
What Amplify and what's his poundage rate of alfalfa in this area?
The other question was, Charles, what's your seeding rate for alfalfa here when you put a new seed?
You want to know?
We really want to know.
I'm up to 28 pounds an acre.
Charles is up to 28 pounds an acre on his seeding. There were some questions over here. Question up here?
Yeah, on your prescription for fertilizer right to start with, do you spray that on before you seed it? Like the 5 gallons of feed, 16 ounces of fertilizer?
Yeah, you would apply that soil broadcast, spray it on there, soil broadcast, before you'd seed it.
Incorporated.
Yep.
Would you just roll that in when you plant, or would you like column mulch it in? Or?
Question is, would you row plant that in or column mulch it?
Do you just take the seeder over to incorporate it, or do you just use another tillage pass?
Seeder or another tillage pass, a soil finisher, or if you've already finished it, just broadcast it, go in and seed it, and pack it, column mulch it. Yes?
Anybody know how much tolerance for error there is on the ProServe? You just guess your tonnage.
How much tolerance for error on the ProServe if I misguess my tonnage?
It's always better to go heavier than lighter.
I'm going 1.3 so I don't miss my tonnage. I don't know. I don't know the answer for you there. I haven't done it, but I will. I'm always pushing the limits. So when I do go past it, I'll call you. Yeah. Yes, Steve.
When you do the soil testing, how many acres per one sample do you go?
Question is, when I do the soil testing, how many acres per one sample? I usually take 2 to 3 samples, like in a 40-acre spot, and it's 10 probes per sample. I like lots of dirt. I like the bucket full, mix it up.
How much is one sample cost?
One sample. What the question is, how much is one sample? It's like $26. And if you go to an event, some events they'll give away soil samples. If you attend a ProAg training, you'll get 16 soil samples with your ProAg training. That's a bargain. Other questions? With that, now it's perfect time of day, Charles.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. I love Nebraska. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.